Hi, if you want to watch exclusive content with hot girls that you won't watch on YouTube, namely where Naruto roasts Kushina and Makoto and many other hot girls without restrictions, then visit my Boosty channel at the link in the description. He didn't expect to hear such news. And who would be happy to hear that you're dying? It didn't seem true, because Naruto believed that he should live at least until he was an old man. But no, he was not destined to live to such a venerable age. And he still had so much to do. Sasuke had not yet been returned to the village, Uzumaki had not yet achieved becoming Hokage. The main dream was slipping away from under his feet, flowing away to where it was not destined to come true. Everything was starting to collapse like a house of cards, the world had acquired dark colors. And everything was just starting out well. The Jinchuriki had achieved that the village recognized him. The battle with Pain showed that the blonde did not want destruction. He was not a demon fox, but an ordinary guy who worried about his village and loved it. Everything he had achieved lost all meaning. It became so unimportant. Uzumaki still pretended to his friends that everything was fine. He never told anyone about it. He just couldn't. He even forbade Bachan from telling him, because he didn't want anyone else to know about it. It was just a secret between him and the Hokage. Even his closest friends didn't know, even those who were closest. Iruka. He couldn't tell his teacher that he only had a little time left to live. No, Tsunade hadn't given him a date, but Uzumaki himself knew that he didn't have much time left. Time was against him. The first time it happened was when they went to the Land of Iron to talk to Killer Bee's brother. But he didn't even listen to the blonde. Already in the village, Naruto felt pain in the heart area for the first time. The pain spread throughout his body. It became difficult to breathe, and Naruto simply fell to the ground. His legs could not hold him, they failed him. He lost consciousness, and woke up only in the evening. But then everyone assumed that it was just stress caused by a long journey and information about Sasuke. Everyone understood that Naruto was trying hard, not even sparing himself. And Naruto. He already felt something was wrong, but kept quiet, deciding to go with Tsunade later. She could dispel doubts. Even in general, Uzumaki believed that he was well protected. The fox always protected him from illness or from enemies. The blonde knew that he had never gotten sick, because he had immunity, which was somehow connected to the Kyuubi. Upon returning to the village, Naruto went to the Hokage, who confirmed his suspicions, telling him the terrible news. Uzumaki had a sick heart, which could not withstand the load. Naruto really did not take care of his health, preferring to train, take missions, look for a friend. This took a lot of time and effort, but the guy did not spare himself. And here is the result. The fox's heart could not protect, and it ended up in such conditions. Bachan, don't tell anyone about this. The blonde looked at the woman pleadingly. They mustn't know about this. This is only my problem, and I have to solve it. Do you even understand, Naruto, that they are your friends and should know? The Hokage was angry, but restrained herself, clenching her fists even harder, digging her nails into her skin. Think about them. How will they feel when it's too late? You have to tell them. Demanding and imperious. No. I won't. It will be easier for them not to know about it. Affirmatively. Uzumaki was not going to back down. Okay. Sigh. But know that I won't be able to keep silent for long. They will find out anyway, but only under different circumstances. I will leave this conversation now, but we will return to it later. Doomed. Tsunade didn't know what to do. She didn't want to keep silent, but she couldn't disobey the guy either, because that's what he had decided. She had no right to reveal his secret. Now I would advise you to try less, but knowing you, you won't listen to me. Bachan, I haven't brought Sasuke back yet and I haven't become Hokage yet, so I have no time to sit. A smile, but not as bright as before, but forced. It seemed that Naruto himself did not believe that everything could be the way he wanted. He no longer believed his words, but he continued to repeat them, trying to grasp at straws. He wanted to live, and his dreams and aspirations were a good incentive. I have to bring Sasuke back. Already the truth that had settled deep inside, at least I have to do this. A sigh, he has to come back. Okay, I'll go home. I need to. It doesn't matter. Okay, go. Just come to me every Tuesday. I want to keep an eye on your illness. Okay? The voice quieted down a little, the imperious notes in the woman's voice disappeared somewhere, but concern appeared. Okay. See you tomorrow, Ba-chan. He turned around and opened the door. Could you send someone to find Sasuke? I need to start searching. But there are no leads. Yes, I will do something. Naruto had no doubt that the Hokage would help him. She was always on his side, helping, protecting. That's good. Then see you tomorrow, since I'm going to take on a mission. I need it. He left the room, closing the door behind him. He didn't even listen to the Hokage's words. He simply couldn't be in the office. Only at home was the Jinchuriki able to lower himself to the floor, leaning his back against the door. The realization of what had happened came back with renewed force. He realized what had really happened. Closing his eyes, he put his head on his knees and tried to calm down. Naruto realized that he had already decided everything in Tsunade's office, he just needed to realize it. He would bring Sasuke back, and then let whatever happened. He had never been afraid of death, the main thing was not to lose himself. The guy didn't know that this news would change his life forever. Nothing would be the same again. And the meeting with Sasuke would be just around the corner, as he wanted. A week passed after that incident in the Hokage's office. Naruto came to Tsunade every time to find out news about Sasuke, but the woman only shrugged her shoulders and spread her arms to the sides, there was nothing. This did not even upset the guy, because he understood that the Uchiha himself did not want anyone to know his whereabouts. Yes, and now that he was in Akatsuki, it was really impossible to find him. Naruto did not give up, although for some reason it seemed to him that their meeting would happen soon. Perhaps a premonition awakened in him, although this had not been observed before. In general, Uzumaki was in anticipation. He understood that it was impossible to return his friend to the village, because until the brunette wanted it with all his heart, it would not happen. And even if the blonde broke himself, it would not change anything. More and more often, thoughts appeared in the guy's head that perhaps he no longer wanted to return Sasuke to Konoha, but wanted to talk to him, to find out the unspoken things that had always been in their relationship. They could not communicate normally, only teasing and fighting helped. Yes, it helped to understand without words, but not everything was revealed. Until a certain moment, Naruto did not understand what Sasuke felt, he did not know what hatred was. He simply could not imagine it. But everything was gradually learned, experienced, felt. Tired of waiting for news, Naruto asked for a mission, since he couldn't sit still and wasn't used to it. Bachan tried to dissuade him, citing the fact that an attack could happen at any moment. But Naruto didn't even listen to her, since he understood that if he stayed here for even another week, he would wither away from boredom. Tsunade offered simple missions, but Uzumaki refused them, saying that they weren't for him, since he was already capable of taking on high-ranking missions. The hero of Konoha couldn't stay in the village and carry out minor assignments. The Jinchuriki felt like he could be locked in the village. Still, the woman had to give in under the pressure of stubborn Naruto. The blonde had not changed and still remained a persistent, stubborn, purposeful guy. But still, the Hokage noticed sadness in his gaze. The guy was slowly changing, becoming calmer and more reserved, although he still pretended to be ordinary in front of his friends. Only a few noticed the changes, but each made their own conclusion, but not corresponding to reality. Uzumaki never told about his illness. The captain was Kakashi, who was personally asked by Tsunade. She did not tell all the details, but asked to keep an eye on Naruto, so that nothing happened to him. Hatake did not understand why, but he kept quiet since he still remembered what he was taught in Umbu. Only the two of them were going on the mission, although Tsunade insisted on Sakura, but she was needed in the hospital. They had to let only two go. Their path began from the gates of Konoha, where Uzumaki and Hatake were supposed to meet. Adjusting the strap of his backpack, Naruto lowered his hand and hurried out of the house. Confidently striding down the street, the guy walked to the gate, not even examining the area. He had seen all this for a long time, all this was familiar since childhood. Uzumaki was thoughtful, because something was bothering him. He did not smile, as usual, but only looked at his feet, occasionally frowning. Only after he reached the post, the blonde perked up and smiled at the guards. It was necessary to continue to show the usual Uzumaki Naruto, who does not care about anything. The Jinchuriki did not even notice that Kakashi was watching him, noticing something for himself. He had noticed the changes in the guy for a long time, but there was no time to ask. Having risen from the branch, the man silently jumped down and hurried to his student, who pretended to be looking for the captain. "You're late, Kakashi-sensei," the blonde said as loudly as possible. The man just shrugged, grinning. It was their tradition, which was repeated every time. Everyone already knew the answer to where Hataki had disappeared to, but they preferred to move on to their own version. "I met a granny here who urgently needed my help," the former Umbu member answered habitually. "That's not true." A smile that was so similar to the usual one. "What is our mission, Kakashi-sensei?" Naruto tried to continue the conversation. They had just left the village and were already heading towards the forest, starting their journey. Jumping onto the first branch, Naruto began to listen about the mission, occasionally asking the teacher again. He was genuinely interested in what mission the Hokage had given them, which he hadn't noticed before. Kakashi preferred to write it off to the fact that Naruto was getting older and was beginning to understand the seriousness of his situation and the world in general. After briefly explaining that they had to deliver a scroll with important information to the Land of Waves, Kakashi fell silent. They continued on their way. Only occasionally an exclamation or question could be heard from Uzumaki's lips. It was as if he was in another place, only the shell continued to move. In fact, it was almost like that. Naruto had been communicating with the fox for some time, who for some reason decided to communicate. This had happened before, but only when his Jinchuriki was in danger. And now he himself deigned to open his eyes to say a few words. He didn't tell anything new, but Uzumaki noticed that Kyubi was looking at him differently, either pitying him or worrying him. But the blonde still thought that perhaps he had imagined it all. Having emerged from his consciousness, Naruto looked around. They had already left the outskirts of Konoha, and now the terrain had changed. There were fewer trees, so they had to go down to continue their journey on the ground. Kakashi was silent, as if he had not been there at all. The blonde noticed how the teacher was looking at him sideways. Thoughtfulness was appearing in his gaze, as if he was solving some difficult problem. The blonde understood that Hataki had already noticed the change in his character and behavior, but he was in no hurry to talk about it. It was as if he was afraid, but that was not true. The Jinchuriki did not want anyone to worry about him, but perhaps he would not be able to hide the truth. Uzumaki did not immediately notice the enemy shinobi. Only after Kakashi parried the first blows, the guy rushed into battle. Taking out a kunai, he threw it at the first enemy, who deftly dodged, but this was not surprising. The employers made sure that the shinobi were trained. Shaking his head, Naruto folded his hands and called several shadow clones, sending them to the enemies. There were about 4 of them in total, but they deftly fought off the attacks. While the clones were disappearing, Naruto managed to call a couple more, sending them even there, but already together with Rasengan. Less than a minute passed before these shadow clones were defeated, although there were 2 opponents left. Kakashi killed one, and one of the clones hit the second. Sighing, Uzumaki took out another kunai and rushed into battle, trying to hook the man whose face was hidden under a mask. Only through the slits could you see the eyes. But he deftly dodged, managing to strike with a dagger. A couple of times the shinobi managed to hit the blonde in the chest area, and the second in the face. Hissing in pain, Naruto took a couple of steps back to regroup. But then he stopped, swaying slightly. Poisoned. This was the first thing that came to the Jinchuriki's mind, and he was right. Everything swam before his eyes, and the enemy's silhouette became blurry. Closing his eyes for literally 2 minutes, the blonde tried to pull himself together. He did not expect that this is exactly what they would do. It was too dirty and wrong. But who will judge them, because everyone has their own methods of achieving their goals. The fact that everything was swam was nothing, but the fact that his heart began to beat faster already aroused suspicion. Uzumaki still remembered how it happened the first time, when his heart decided to speak out. Now the same thing was happening, and something had to be done. Opening his eyes, Naruto tried to focus his gaze and look at the enemy. He tried to breathe deeper, trying to calm down. But his heart continued to squeeze, sending weak waves of pain through his body. Gritting his teeth, Uzumaki grabbed his weapon more comfortably and rushed at the masked man. The Jinchuriki had already noticed that Kakashi had long been taken away somewhere far away, trying to separate them. It was a smart move. Taking a step, swaying slightly, the blonde parried the first blow of the dagger, dodging the next blow. It was hard, because the guy was staggering, and the pain in his chest was intensifying. Uzumaki did not notice the kick that hit his ribs, and flew back to the tree, hitting his back against the trunk. The world spun even more, and Naruto was unable to focus his gaze at once. Still, it was his own fault that he underestimated the enemy and did not use strong techniques. Opening his eyes, the boy saw a silhouette towering over him. Uzumaki tried to get up, but a sharp pain stopped all his attempts. After taking a couple of breaths and biting his lip, the blonde looked up at the man and stared at him. Something was wrong here, because the man didn't look like the one in the mask. That one was a huge brute, and this one was stately. Trying to focus his gaze again, Naruto exhaled sharply. He realized who was standing in front of him. And you, Dobe, as I see, have become even weaker. Only a grin on the face of the brunette, who looked attentively at his former friend. You can no longer cope with a weakling. Please comment, as your answers to my chapters give me inspiration and strength to write further __. Naruto couldn't believe that his friend was standing in front of him. Sasuke hadn't changed in appearance since their last meeting. Although his gaze had changed, he became even more self-confident. You could see the hatred that the brunette no longer hid from those around him. But he remained just as cold, and was not going to show emotions. On his face you could only see a crooked smile, which was more like a smirk. A reserved, self-confident guy who is sure that he always does everything right. If it weren't for the pain, Naruto would have quickly found something to answer Uchiha's barb. But now the blonde was trying to pretend that everything was fine with him, and he just sat down to rest. At least, it seemed to him that everything was working out for him. He couldn't see himself from the outside, and this slightly upset him. Uzumaki couldn't know how he really looked now. Perhaps everything had already become clear to Sasuke. But looking at him, it was impossible to make out anything. If there was one thing, it was Uchiha who knew how to hide all emotions. Sasuke? What are you doing here? He tried to be surprised, because now he had managed to forget how to be surprised by anything. It's just that when you already know that you're not long for this world, you have time to realize and understand a lot. Did you come for me? For some reason, this option turned out to be preferable. And it wasn't just that Naruto wanted it. No, on the contrary, he wasn't trying to follow his friend anywhere. The Jinchuriki just wanted to talk to the brunette, and returning him to the village wasn't even a thought, since he understood that he had missed his chance. Nothing could be done now. Naruto simply realized that the Uchiha had come for him, since the Biju was in the Uzumaki's body. Akatsuki had almost collected everything. Only the Kyuubi and one more remained, but the blonde knew nothing about it. Naruto knew he had to get up, because he didn't want to seem weak to others until the very end, especially if it was Sasuke. He couldn't give in to his eternal rival, friend, comrade, and be weak. Not next to him. But no matter how confidently the shinobi tried to get up, the pain wouldn't let him do it, because it was growing with renewed vigor, giving only a strong tingling sensation. There wasn't enough air. He had to breathe through his mouth, then through his nose. Shaking his head, Naruto continued to look at Sasuke. He didn't want to lose eye contact with him. What if this was their last meeting? He wanted to remember his friend well before he died. There was no response from the missing Nin, although something else happened. While Naruto was trying to get up, Kakashi appeared, who wasn't even battered. He had apparently dealt with his opponent quickly and decided to help the blonde. The copy ninja seemed not to notice the brunette, and hurried to approach the Jinchuriki. Squatting down, he leaned closer to Uzumaki and looked at him carefully, lifting his headband. It was as if he wanted to see something with his Sharingan in the guy sitting opposite him. Naruto stopped trying to get up from this, and looked at his sensei in surprise and leaned back slightly, almost howling in pain. It was really strange to look at the teacher so closely. Swallowing, the Jinchuriki tried to calm down again so as not to show himself. He knew that Kakashi-sensei noticed everything. Did Tsunade give you anything? Hatake broke the silence. Naruto gasped, as he understood the teacher the first time. Turning his gaze to the place where the Uchiha had been standing, he saw that he was still there, listening intently and watching the two of them. "I don't understand what you're talking about, Kakashi-sensei." He looked at the copy ninja again. Naruto tried to look like a fool, since no one should know his truth. "Naruto," it was said with a slight disappointment, "why are you lying? You're only making things worse for yourself, and I want to help." A sigh from the gray-haired man made Uzumaki feel ashamed. He understood that he shouldn't have done that either. But he still decided to follow his path. Although the next question threw him off track. "How much time do you have left?" A lump rose in his throat, but he had to answer. He had to refute the words said to Hatake. "Kakashi-sensei, you have completely confused me. What are you even talking about?" A smile, but so strained that he wants to wipe it off his face. Naruto had never smiled like that before, and everyone who was here knew it. Even Sasuke came closer, although he remained just as unapproachable, reserved. It didn't matter anymore. Just take the truth about himself, and how bad everything was now. Naruto understood that if he didn't show now that everything was okay with him, then soon everyone would find out about it. Clenching his fists, he shook his head and tilted it down, trying to hide his gaze. It was becoming increasingly difficult to breathe. An invisible vice was squeezing his heart. Slightly raising his gaze, the Jinchuriki glanced sideways at his friends and grinned. They were scared. Even Sasuke now seemed confused, as if he finally understood what was being discussed. Yes, he still had to say it. But before Uzumaki could say anything, the Uchiha interrupted him. "You'll come with me." He was collected again, as if he wasn't the lost boy who was about to have his toy taken away. The thought made him want to laugh, but the blonde just bit his lip, raising his head again to look into the dark, almost black eyes. "Naruto won't go anywhere with you, Sasuke." Kakashi didn't even look at his former student. His attention was only drawn to the guy who was opposite him. "He will go with me to Konoha, where he will receive treatment. I'm sure Tsunade knows about your illness, but she won't tell you since you asked her to." The last words were intended for Uzumaki, who seemed not to pay attention to anyone. It was as if he had detached himself from everything and was trying to cope with his problem. It was obvious that he was in pain, but he still pretended that everything was fine with him. It seemed that he was not listening, but that was not true. Naruto glanced sideways in surprise from one to the other. He even had enough strength to laugh quietly. He did not understand why this division was necessary, because Naruto had already decided for himself that he would live in a way that he would not feel sorry for and, accordingly, do what he wanted. As he always did, nothing had changed. "To be honest, if it comes down to it, then I don't care anymore, Kakashi-sensei, what happens to me." The blonde raised his hand and squeezed his jacket, feeling pain in that area. Yes, that's where his heart was hurting, which would soon stop. "I don't know how much time I have left, but Bachan said that my attacks would get me. How many there will be, I can't know, and I don't want to. I've resigned myself to it." Then he bowed his head and glanced sideways at the teacher. "I just ask you not to tell anyone, that's what I decided. No one should know." The pain was going away, although it still didn't let go. Sighing, Uzumaki, clenching his teeth, there was no point in hiding it, began to get up. His head was spinning, he felt slightly nauseous, but the blonde stubbornly stood up, ignoring the pain. "That's it, enough, he will not be weak, this is his incentive. As long as he lives, so much he must." Straightening his back, Naruto stretched out, standing up to his full height. Taking a couple of deep breaths in and out, he takes a step, but then he leans to the side. He manages to stop so as not to fall. He looks at his friend and teacher and notices their tense faces. But why is Sasuke wary? He should exude only coldness, but no, and he is watching the Jinchuriki. Strange. The blonde takes a step and then realizes that he will not reach it after all. Darkness rolls over him, and the guide begins to lose consciousness. The body begins to fall, and Uzumaki so wanted to approach the Uchiha to say a few words to him. Say goodbye? Maybe. But now it was impossible. The saving darkness rolled in, giving peace and quiet. The last thing the guy saw in front of him were Sasuke's hands and his worried face. "Naruto!" Hatake and Sasuke say at the same time, and then darkness. It was all over so quickly. Sasuke had no intention of returning to the village. There were so many unnecessary memories of a place where he never felt at home. Yes, he was lying to himself, realizing that Konoha had been his home as a child. After all, he had a family, a clan. And what about now? He knew that the place where his clan's houses used to be was simply destroyed. Like the entire village, which had been attacked by Pain, who had lost so easily to Uzumaki. The blonde had really become stronger, which was impossible not to notice. Even when after so many days, weeks, or even months Sasuke saw the difference in his friend, or rather, his former friend. The Uchiha had severed all the threads that connected him and his friends, who for the Uchiha had not seemed close at all. He hated these threads that people like to entangle themselves with so as not to seem lonely. It was so insignificant of them to do so. People were stupid. Of which the brunette was fully convinced. Meeting Naruto was as much of a surprise for him as it was for Uzumaki. At least for the Nukenin, that's what it seemed like when he saw a surprised look in his direction. Still, this dobe never changes and still remains trusting and believing in the best, which could not be in reality. Miracles do not happen. Nothing happens if you want it to. And Naruto apparently did not understand this, and in general, he had never been smart. Although now it seemed to the Uchiha that the Jinchuriki was deliberately making a fool of himself just to be noticed. This was not surprising, because Uzumaki never knew what family was, and what human warmth was. Did Naruto feel sorry for Sasuke? No, the brunette never pitied anyone. He really did not care about others, although in childhood he wanted to be friends with this restless boy. And then he simply could not, his pride did not allow it, and thoughts about Itachi kindled hatred. Friends were not needed, they were a hindrance. And now the missing Nin returned to the fact that he had to return to the damn village, because he could not leave Uzumaki. Yes, he could have calmly left, forgetting about this incident, as he always did. He walked away from all the problems, not thinking about others, because he was more interested only in his own. He did not want to be dependent on others, believing that it would be better. But something inside squeezed when Kakashi approached Naruto and, sitting down, asked about what Sasuke was always afraid to think. Naruto was sick. These words pressed inside his head, not allowing him to think soberly. Outwardly, the brunette was the same, a lifeless mask was well eaten into his face. Uchiha could not believe that this eternally noisy guy was sick. How could this be? Because the dobe promised that they would die together. Why then does he not strive to do this? Sasuke was truly confused, because he was lied to. And who? His best friend, who was always running after him, trying to save him. Kakashi did not let Uzumaki carry him, saying that he would not let the traitor touch Naruto. Uchiha only snorted at such a remark, but still did not resist. They went to Konoha, walking slowly, so as not to cause Naruto even more inconvenience. Sasuke saw how tense the face of the former teacher was, but this only amused the missing Nin, because Kakashi never worried about anyone. But it was worth only turning his gaze to Naruto, who now looked more like a doll that was thrown on his back, because it was easier that way. Sasuke again became reserved. He saw how the sensei was looking at him sideways, but it was only slightly irritating, but not to the extent that he asked for an explanation. It was clear that the copy ninja did not understand why the brunette was following them, but he remained silent. Sasuke understood that as soon as he was inside the village, he would be captured and tortured. But he didn't care, because they couldn't do anything. He wasn't afraid of pain, because it was always with him. Here was the gate, which for some reason remained in place. Sasuke looked around, because he had never seen Konoha like this. There was devastation everywhere, although the townspeople had already started building their houses again. This was not the village that Uchiha had left. Everything had changed. What had been before, none of it existed anymore. All that was left were rubble, stones, and just earth. But what was really surprising was that not a single resident had died, and in vain. After all, the brunette really didn't want to see some faces that only caused disgust and unnecessary anger. He wanted to see the death of hated people until his teeth were gnashing, until his fists were bloody. Sasuke was captured, and Kakashi did not stand up for him, which was right. The brunette did not want anyone to pity him or stand up for him. He did not need such noble impulses, he was fed up with them. Hissing when his hands were twisted behind his back, he did not say a word, following under escort. He did not know where he was being taken, but the Uchiha did not care. He was only interested in one person, who was carried away in the wrong direction. Sasuke tried to see the guy's yellow head, but as luck would have it, he was quickly taken away, not allowing him to inquire about the health of the Jinchuriki. Sasuke was tortured with gusto, using different methods, devices, but he was silent. He had nothing to say to these idiots, who were so stupid that they could not understand that the brunette would not tell Akatsuki's plans. He himself did not know, because he was only a pawn that was controlled. The Nukenin allowed this, because the opponents knew what to put pressure on. The truth about Itachi was revealed, and Konoha became hateful to such an extent that he wanted to erase it. Kill everyone with special zeal so that he could hear their screams, the cracking of bones, their pleas. But now this faded into the background. Now, the Dobe had to fulfill his promise. After all, he promised, and this meant that the Uchiha would do everything to make it so. He must kill Uzumaki himself, because only he could stop the brunette. Sasuke was sitting at a table again. His gaze was lowered to his hands, which were bleeding heavily. Several deep cuts, broken thumb and index finger on both hands. Uchiha did not feel pain, because she had been his faithful companion for many years. He was only amused by his hands, which were like a mess. He would not be able to hold his Kusanagi for a long time, until the wounds healed and the fingers were twisted back. But not only his hands were injured, his ribs were burning terribly. He had to breathe slowly and deliberately, because a large gulp of air got stuck and made him feel more pain than he wanted. There was a bruise on his cheekbone, which had already turned blue. His lip was split, and blood was running down his forehead in streams, because the missing nin had recently been thoroughly slammed to the table. So, for a long time some crap was dancing in the brunette's eyes, which the guy did not consider. It would be stupid. And only now Uchiha was able to focus his vision, staring at his hands. It became funny, because the torture was not giving results. The first laugh was too quiet, and then his voice acquired a sound, and the guy began to laugh even louder. His guards and torturers stared at him in confusion, not understanding why he was having so much fun. "You can't even get information out of me properly." Sasuke looked with disdain at the two men who were opposite him. "Bastard!" The younger one hissed, swinging his arm, but Uchiha only grimaced. He knew he was playing with fire, but he liked this game. He felt the pain and could drown it out with another, or rather, he could stop thinking about Uzumaki, who was probably in the hospital right now. "I won't tell you anything, even if you kill me. I don't care." The brunette hisses hatefully, looking at his tormentors from under his bangs. "You have only one way to get me to talk, to sit me next to Uzumaki. Only he will be able to squeeze the truth out of me," the missing nin said ominously, leaning back in his chair. He was offering a profitable deal, but he was not sure that they would listen to him. Uchiha offered his bet, and it was up to them to decide, those who were behind these two, who had worked so carefully on the brunette's body. Opening his eyes, Naruto looked at the ceiling. He wasn't in the forest, which wasn't surprising. Kakashi would never leave his student on the ground. And besides, if he was sick, there were definitely voices behind the door, but the Jinchuriki wasn't paying any attention to them yet. It seemed to him that there was someone else in the room, but he was in no hurry to turn his head to check his guess. And why? Because they could put him in a ward with someone wounded. It didn't matter who was sitting or lying on the next bed, although no, he was wrong. There was no one next to him. He was lying in the ward alone. He really wanted to see Sasuke. But now was not the time to think about that. Uzumaki began to understand more and more that perhaps he no longer wanted to return the Uchiha to a place where he did not want to be. Hope was fading for those who still believed that the young Avenger could still be saved. There were fewer and fewer of them. Even Sakura no longer believed that it was possible to save her beloved. There was only him, Naruto, who continued to believe. But he also no longer needed it, because the future dead man does not need anything. Perhaps he gave up quickly. But understand that he was tired of fighting. For the most part, he fought this battle for the best alone. He needed support, he received it. But he felt only crumbs of what they could give him. No, the blonde still loved his friends, teachers, but he wanted to distance himself so that they would not feel terrible after his death. He wants their faces to continue to shine with a smile, for happiness to overflow in their hearts. The voices behind the door grew louder, so much so that it was possible to distinguish who was speaking and what they were talking about. Kakashi and Bachan were sorting things out. Most likely, Kakashi was interested in the blonde's health. To which the woman denied it and said that it was Naruto's right to divulge such information. Although she let it slip that the operation might be done, but the chances of survival were very low. The copy ninja seemed to ask why Naruto had not agreed. If Uzumaki had heard correctly. But the teacher was met with silence in response. Apparently the Hokage shrugged her shoulders or shook her head. The guy himself did not like this conversation. He had to explain the entire situation to the teacher, because he already knew about the illness. Carefully rising, the Jinchuriki felt dizzy, which would probably bother him for a long time. The picture of the room was slightly blurry, but the guy was not going to stop. He just needed to call them to his room, but for some reason he wanted to walk on his own 2 feet to see the faces of such dear people. Even Iruka did not know about the disease. This simple statement caused a shudder. No. He definitely should not find out about this, because he had already suffered in the past. Why ruin his life with such terrible news? Naruto already imagined how his first teacher and friend would react. Although most of all Iruka was like a brother who took care of a blockhead named Naruto. Grasping the bed with his hands, Uzumaki successfully stood up, trying to feel his weight. But for some reason his legs were shaking, although they held him. Straightening up, he slightly miscalculated the strength, and felt some kind of fog appear in his head again, and his eyes darkened. But after standing like that for a couple of seconds, the guy opened his eyes again and carefully began to move towards the treasured door that separated him from the speakers. Carefully, step by step, overcoming the distance, he finally reached his goal and opened it. Kakashi and Tsunade immediately turned to him and stared at him. Glancing sideways at the teacher first, the blonde noticed that Bachan was starting to get angry, which was understandable. The patient is trying to get out of bed and is violating bed rest. Raising his hands up, Naruto smiled tensely and tried to calm the woman down. Bachan, you can't hit me, you don't want me to never leave the hospital. In my case, I can't get seriously hurt. He knew that this trick would calm the doctor's ardor, because he understood that if he got hit now, he would definitely not be able to stay on his feet. He already had to hold on to the door frame so as not to fall right there or at least sit down. He didn't want to look weak in front of anyone, even if they were people dear to him. It was better to hide it than to receive regrets and looks later, from which you shudder, as if you were already a corpse. Although it was really so. Naruto, why did you get up? You could have just called, you heard us. Tsunade still managed to moderate her ardor, although she did not unclench her hands. On the contrary, she squeezed them tighter so that her nails dug into the skin. She saw how bad Naruto was now, but she kept silent about it. It was hard enough for him now and he wanted to cope with his problems himself, like in childhood. Only he had already forgotten that he was not alone, he was surrounded by people who cared about him. Senju understood that, if Naruto did die, which she did not want to believe, then no one would be happy the way he wanted. Could you please come inside, I want you, Bachan, to tell Kakashi-sensei. No one else should know about this. I will tell you something related to my illness. Breaking away from the doorway, Naruto hurried back inside until he met the eyes of the black sky. Sasuke. You don't even want to tell me about the illness, though. Uchiha's voice sounded mocking and reproachful. No, that's impossible. Sasuke couldn't say that, because the brunette doesn't like to show emotions. Perhaps he only imagined it. Continuing on his way, the blonde tried to walk straight, without staggering, which was very difficult. His legs did not want to move, as if weights were tied to them, like Lee's. So he had to hobble as best he could. Although after a few minutes someone grabbed his hand, helping. But he did not want help, so looking at the assistant, who turned out to be Senju, Naruto only looked at her carefully, and she let go of the guy's hand, understanding his thoughts. Uchiha also followed into the ward, and to make it most interesting, he did not have security. But this did not interest Uzumaki much. He did not want Sasuke to know the whole truth about his illness. He did not need it, because his revenge would come to the final stage. There would be no one to interfere with him. One obstacle will disappear, the greater the chance of victory. And Sasuke understands this perfectly well. But then why is he here? Decided to make fun of him? Then let him, because the Jinchuriki does not care anymore. Kakashi-sensei, why is Sasuke here? The blonde sat down on the bed. Although no, don't tell me, I'm not interested. The main thing is that he won't stay here for long and let him go where his home is. Naruto was sure that the Uchiha came to him to make fun of him, to make him want to fulfill his promise. Naruto, he won't leave since he was caught. We are fulfilling his demand that he tell us information about our opponents. He requested that you be there. How can I explain it more simply? The copy ninja scratched his head. There was no need to explain, since Naruto already understood everything. And you think he'll do it? The blonde glanced sideways at his friend. Nothing personal, but I know how much you don't like Konoha. I don't want you to stay here. Bah, let him go and let him go wherever he wants. You've already decided everything for me, as I see. Quickly though. And what about the promise you gave me? It seemed that all of Sasuke's words were saturated with sarcasm, but only Naruto could determine the brunette's true feelings. He was very angry. But Uzumaki did not see the reason for his anger. You just want to know more information, that's all. But you know what, Sasuke, go to hell. You'll probably never see me again. Be glad your dream has come true. The blonde saw the guy's face twist, and the Uchiha came up, swinging, but the Jinchuriki was waiting for this and just looked straight into the eyes of his opponent. Yes, they had to go through a lot, but until now Sasuke was a friend for the bijou carrier, someone close, dear. That's why Naruto probably allowed him to do all this. Let his friend feel better, even if it hurts. But the blow didn't follow, as Uchiha abruptly removed his hand, which was all bandaged, and walked over to the other bed, sitting down on it more comfortably. Naruto only watched him, and after the brunette sat down, turned to Tsunade for an explanation. Sorry, but I can't do it any other way. You'll have to keep an eye on him, and Naruto interrupted the woman, saying quietly. I can't. You know that yourself, Bachan, as a medic. The blonde shook his head, moving towards the headboard. Pulling his knees up to himself, the Jinchuriki laid his head so that he could see everyone. A fatigue rolled over him, from which he only wanted to sleep. I would like to go on more missions while I still can. Don't stop me, because I will escape. I need a distraction, and Akatsuki is not defeated yet. I would like to have time to finish with them at least. And if Sasuke goes with me, then I can't keep track of him, and he can contact Madara. My father told me about him when we fought Pain. Nagato sealed me in stone when the fox took control of me. It was then that I met with my father's chakra. The fourth told me that I must stop the threat approaching the shinobi world. The Toad Sage said that I am the child of prophecy. Yeah, right. I can't be him, even if I wanted to. Naruto fell silent, thinking. But you shouldn't go on missions alone. You should have a person on your team who is more experienced and older than you, and at least someone who could help you if something happens. Tsunade sat down on a chair and now thoughtfully tried to help the blonde. Kakashi-sensei, you won't refuse my request, will you? The gaze was directed at the former NSA member. No, of course, I'll just be glad to keep you company. I'm glad you trust me. But then, Tsunade-sama, what should we do about Sasuke? Good, at least they remembered about me. I was already bored with this babble. I'm watching Naruto, that was the agreement. He will watch me. And I don't care what condition he'll be in or where he's going, I'll follow him. Naruto glanced angrily at his friend, but he didn't even look in his direction, he ignored him. Well, fine, but don't get mad later that you got the most annoying guard. I won't always be able to cover your back, just as I won't be able to cover mine. I'm getting weaker and soon I won't be able to walk or even possibly see or talk. Since you like to communicate with the future dead so much, then please, I'm at your service. Uzumaki Naruto is always ready to lend a helping hand. Naruto really lost his temper, which happened too rarely. Only if the situation was really suitable. Well, maybe that was the case now. Apparently today he had already exhausted his limit since the anger disappeared as abruptly as it appeared. He just felt empty, that's all. Sighing, Naruto ran his hand through his hair and placed his limb back on the bed. He wanted to sleep, but even now he didn't need to do that. He still needed to tell the teacher and Sasuke what was happening to him. Bachan, it's your turn. We're not here to listen to me and Sasuke squabble. The blonde smiled slightly. Now the smile was alive, already similar to the previous one. But Tsunade managed to catch something when she was watching the verbal bickering of these two. Naruto looks alive next to this last offspring of the Uchiha clan. This was both good and bad, but it was better for Uzumaki not to know about this observation, since he was already not happy that his friend remained next to him. The blonde wanted to distance himself from everyone. According to Naruto, the first attack happened back when you, Sasuke, attacked the 5th Kage. As we all know, your target was Danzo. So, after Uzumaki visited Gaara, who was pursuing Uchiha, Naruto felt a strong pain in his chest and fell to the ground. After that, a few days later, my unborn patient comes to me to get checked. I was really surprised by his visit and fulfilled his request. And in general, I did not believe in this examination result for a long time. Naruto is really dying, and his disease is so advanced that there is not much choice. The heart could not withstand the load on the body that Naruto was subjected to, and because of the stress. Unfortunately, he refused treatment, or rather, surgery. What about the fox? Doesn't it cure any injuries? Sasuke sat with his elbows on his knees and stared at the Hokage. A cold, piercing gaze. He can't. I already talked to him about it. I'm already thinking about resealing him in someone else. But my clan is all gone. I'm the last of the Uzumaki clan. Although no, also Karen. Naruto stared at the wall, immersed in his thoughts. If you think about it, I don't trust her. Yes, and Kyuubi won't be happy to get into a new body. He already hated me, because my mother and father sealed him in me. The 4th will truly remain my idol. Kakashi-sensei, you're lucky that you studied with my father. Yes, Minato-san was a wonderful teacher. He loved your mother very much, and you even more so, because you are his treasure. You are very similar to the 4th. Kakashi smiled slightly. Yes, we are similar, which is good news. Father said that I have my mother's character. But it's not that important, I'll meet them soon. The blonde sighed, turning his gaze from Kakashi. Bah, find me a mission for tomorrow. He didn't even need to look at the woman to know that she was angry now. Naruto, the Hokage hissed, you haven't recovered yet. You can't even move normally. I won't pay attention to it. Either you give me a task, or I'll run away to Gaara. I think he'll find something to keep me busy with. His eyes flashed with determination. Good. Tsunade sighed heavily. She understood that it would be impossible to keep this boy in place, even if she put him in a cell. He would escape, and also tease everyone. It was better to make concessions than to contradict. Then I can give one thing right away. Akatsuki has appeared in the Land of Wind. We need to check what they need there. I can only send you and Kakashi. You already know what they are capable of. You were able to defeat Pain. I understand, Bachan. I'll come to you tomorrow, but now you can leave me. I want to rest. Kakashi and Tsunade did as the Jinchuriki asked without a word. Naruto stretched out his legs and tried to ignore his friend, who seemed to be scanning him now. He felt Sasuke's gaze on him, but he continued to get comfortable on the bed. Turning away, he closed his eyes and tried to fall asleep. The next day, Uzumaki woke up to his nurse waking him up so that he could take his medicine. The blonde didn't complain, as he used to, but took what he was given and got out of bed. His legs were still shaking, although the shaking had become less. It could be considered a small victory. Adjusting his pants and t-shirt, which had managed to ride up, Naruto put on his jacket and checked all his gear. The last thing he did was put on his shoes and tied on his headband with a protector. He was ready to go to the Hokage. Turning to the next bed, the blonde didn't see Sasuke, which made him a little happy. He didn't want to get close to him, and it was too late to do so. Stepping to the window and opening it wide, the Jinchuriki jumped out of it, landing on another, but lower, roof. Confidently jumping over all the roofs, Uzumaki was soon able to reach the residence. Having fallen to the ground, the guy hurried to enter the building. As Naruto climbed the steps, he could sense Sasuke's chakra. What he was doing there was unclear, although it could only be found out by entering the office. Opening the door and entering, Naruto looked at the people who were in the room. There were Kakashi, Sasuke, Tsunade, and an unknown shinobi, whom Naruto had not seen before. Having greeted everyone, he put his hands behind his head as usual, waiting for his task. Naruto, here's the thing. Basically, there might be an ambush waiting for you there. Pointing at the unknown shinobi, the Hokage continued. He was sent to find the Akatsuki's habitat, but he failed. I don't want to risk you, but it's dangerous. What's dangerous? That they might grab me and pull the fox out of me? Or that I might die like Gaara? Bah, you know yourself that I'll go even if you don't let me go. We talked about this yesterday. I should at least deal with them. Besides, I can use hermit mode. You saw what I can do in this mode. One of the panes was destroyed by my single blow. I've surpassed my teacher. I have completed the Rasen Shuriken. But you can't use it in your normal state. Your hand gets injured. The woman's voice was stern. But not in the mode. I just need to leave 2 clones here, in the residence, that's all. I still have the scroll, and Kakashi will help me if necessary. He will distract the opponents. Naruto did not give up, because he knew that they would do as he wanted. They just know that arguing with him is useless and pointless. Well then, go now, I hope everything will be fine with you. Senju's voice was tense, because she was worried about Uzumaki. Smiling, Naruto quickly turned around and followed the teacher, who was the commander of their team. As expected, Sasuke followed, which, in general, did not surprise the blonde. He knew that if the Uchiha had something in mind, he would definitely do it. Sasuke was stubborn. Once outside, Uzumaki stopped, stretching his arms up. He couldn't wait to hit the road, to get away from his problems, to feel free. After all, he would run into friends in the village. Irika, it was hard. His heart was starting to ache, but not like that, in a different way, because he couldn't tell them. And he also didn't want to lose the connection with them that had come so hard for him. He had no friends as a child. Only Shikamaru and Kiba treated him normally, without contempt. Although Kiba only later began to consider Naruto a friend. And now he had to do what his best friend had once done: cut off all ties, avoid meetings. It would be better if they didn't know anything, and it would be better for everyone. At least Naruto was sure of it. Starting his journey, the Jinchuriki anticipated new adventures and battles. Now he wanted it, because he needed to defeat the main enemies, and then the rest of the village would be able to do something with Sasuke. Uzumaki listened to his feelings. Yes, he still wanted to deal with Sasuke himself, but it would be better this way. The clones were left in some room of the residence. There was no need to worry about them. Now it was necessary to calmly set off on the way, only at the same time it was necessary to grab the scroll. Although Naruto did not want to carry it on himself, so he resealed it in another, but smaller scroll, which was able to fit in the backpack. Satisfied with his affairs, the blonde talked to Kakashi about the fact that he would need to stop later, before reaching the Country of Wind, to enter the hermit mode. The copy ninja was not against it. He suggested that perhaps in this mode Naruto would be able to sense enemies. Uzumaki nodded his head in agreement to his words and said that he could call on toads so that they would quickly transfer them to the right place. Sasuke was silent the whole way, just following him like a shadow. It seemed as if he was Naruto's guard, and not the other way around. Naruto tried to keep an eye on him, but he didn't talk. There was no need. He didn't want to disturb the connection again. Let it stay like this. They had always been strangers. Although this question is debatable. But the blonde didn't even want to think about it. Already closer to the border, they made a stop, preparing for a new journey and resting. Naruto felt anxious, because he could no longer stand such roads. His heart now reacted differently, squeezing hard. But Naruto preferred not to pay attention to it, although the pain was strong, that sometimes the guy seemed to be suffocating. But pretending that everything was fine with him, he moved on. And somehow strangely, whenever his heart was naughty, Sasuke watched his friend, as if he knew what he felt, but was silent. Kakashi offered to stop several times to rest, but Naruto only joked. He did not want to slow anyone down, so he was silent. And as soon as they stopped, he took a deep breath and turned away, trying to assess his strength. His heart was still squeezing and unclenching hard. It hurt in his chest. It was hard to breathe. Putting his hand on his chest, Naruto sighed a couple of times, removed his hand and took the backpack off his shoulders. After rummaging through it and taking out a scroll, he made seals and pulled out another scroll. Putting it on the ground, he sat down next to it and tried to concentrate. It was hard at first, because the pain was distracting. His face sometimes distorted, but Naruto immediately tried to pull himself together. After a few minutes, he finally managed to tune in, and soon he entered the mode. Opening his eyes, Naruto stood up, adjusting the cloak that his toad teacher had given him. This cloak always appears when he is in hermit mode. Picking up the scroll from the ground, Naruto threw it over, securing it. Turning to his friends, Naruto looked at them. Kakashi approached him with interest, looking at him. Yes, he had not seen this yet, although he had heard well. Sasuke was just looking, examining, but without any interest. He is confident in himself, because he believes that he cannot be defeated now. Naruto, isn't this a complete mode? Kakashi is eager to know more information. Yes. The perverted hermit said that he had not mastered it completely, and the toads from the mountains said that I did everything right. The blonde shook his head. It's a pity that he is gone now. He was like a grandfather to me. The guy said with pain in his voice. You got revenge on Nagato for that. Kakashi wanted to support. It wasn't revenge. I just realized that revenge won't lead to anything. I can't bring back someone dear to me, even if it's possible. I want him to be happy wherever he is. Nagato told me that revenge only breeds suffering and many deaths. It's a vicious circle. It's a pity that I won't be able to fulfill my promise to him. Naruto smiled bitterly, shrugging his shoulders. I promise a lot, but alas, I can't do everything. I know the exact date of my death. It's easy to calculate. Are you so sure about that, Dobe? Naruto shuddered in surprise. He hadn't expected Sasuke to speak. In what? I don't understand what you're talking about. Frowning, the blonde really didn't understand his friend. I mean death. You can have the operation. Icy notes in his voice, as if it worries him. What's the point? I don't want to die in the operating room, because I'm not sure the operation will be successful. I might end up disabled, and I don't want anyone to mess with me. I've never needed pity. His voice wavered slightly. Let me kill you! A confident offer flew from Uchiha's lips. Okay, but after I deal with Akatsuki. If it's easier for you, then go ahead. Now we have to go, I've tracked them down. And my 5 minutes will be up soon. The blonde shrugged. You say it so easily. Sasuke's hissing caused Uzumaki to be surprised. You've become a weakling. Think as you wish. I just want to make your life easier, as well as others. The guy turned away and ran. He knew that they would follow him. The conversation was not finished, but the Jinchuriki did not consider it necessary to do so. He said what he thought. And what others thought, he was not interested now. Finding himself in the forest, Naruto sharply turned west, jumping on the first branch. He knew that the enemies already knew that they were found and were coming to meet. Folding his fingers, the blonde called 2 clones, preparing to attack. He knew that they would meet soon. Stretching out his hand, he creates a Rasengan, which the clones repeat. They turn out to be huge Rasengans, which is very good. The clones go forward, and soon explosions are heard. Well, they need to hurry. Kakashi also rushed forward. As soon as Naruto finds himself in the clearing, he immediately heads towards the enemy, trying to hook him. But he misses, since his enemy is elusive. And these opponents are already familiar to Uzumaki. He has already fought with them, but now they are corpses. Deidara and Sasori. Sensei is fighting the second one. Apparently they just couldn't pass each other by. Well, they are good opponents, nothing to say. Staggering as one of the shells exploded near him and hit him, Uzumaki grabbed the scroll and threw it on the ground. He would only be able to use the wind shuriken once, and then it would return to normal. He needed to prepare to call one of the clones from the residence. Having called the clones and dodged the bomb, Naruto moved away and began to hold his hand, while 2 clones began to spin the cup in different directions. But he was almost hit, because at that moment he was defenseless. Sasuke. He suddenly appeared next to him and covered Naruto with his body, reflecting Deidara's blow. Surprised, he glanced sideways at his friend. Uzumaki stretched his hand up, preparing for the blow. Take that. Throwing the Rasen Shuriken, the blonde staggers and falls to the ground. Well, even that is hard for him to do. He is sure that he will not be able to enter the mode again, even by calling a clone. Something incomprehensible is dancing in his eyes, but Uzumaki does not care about them. He needed to get up, calm down, but the pain returned, only with even greater force. Getting on all fours, Naruto tried to exhale the air that was stuck in his lungs. But nothing worked. Shaking his head, the blonde finally exhales, realizing that he has never been so hard. It is better to die immediately and painlessly. Even if it is Sasuke who does it. Carefully, feeling the pain with every cell, Naruto raised his head, noticed that Sasuke is now fighting Deidara, and Sasori is almost defeated. But then the one whom the Jinchuriki wanted to see the least, Orochimaru's former assistant, Kabuto, appears and calls the corpses into some coffins and they disappear. He says something, but Naruto does not hear, he can only watch, observe. He sees Sasuke and Kakashi approaching him, as if protecting him. Apparently the traitor wanted to take Naruto, but they decided to refuse him. The enemy chuckles and says something to Sasuke, but Naruto can't understand. He has to lower his head and with effort turn over and sit on the ground. Putting his head on his knees, he closed his eyes and tried to calm down. After a few minutes, he began to distinguish noise and voices. Raising his head, Uzumaki looked at his friends, who were looking at him. Naruto, can you hear me? Kakashi's voice was worried. Yes, I hear it now. What happened? The owner's voice did not obey him at all. Everything is fine. They left, but promised to catch you. You and Killer Bee stayed, and the rest of the tailed ones have already been captured. I'm not surprised, they are strong. Perhaps we should rest. Is there a hotel nearby? Closing his eyes for a moment, he immediately opened them again, trying to look at Sasuke, who was sullenly watching the blonde. Yes, there is a village not far from here. It seems like there are also springs there. Kakashi stood up, holding out his hand to Naruto. Grabbing it, the boy was carefully lifted. I can carry you if you feel sick. It's okay, Kakashi-sensei, I'll do it myself. I told you I don't want to be coddled. Still, his legs didn't want to walk, they were shaking. Sighing, Uzumaki took the first uncertain step, but his legs gave way. Weakling. That's what the blonde thought when Sasuke intercepted him when he almost fell. Dobe, I won't ask for your permission now, so you will do as I say. The eyes looked sternly, although without any emotion. I won't listen to you, Naruto muttered, trying to break free from the Uchiha's hands. I'll walk or crawl. It doesn't matter. Standing up and breaking free from the clutches of Naruto's hands, Naruto stubbornly walked towards the village. Kakashi had already gone ahead, as if trusting Sasuke, which surprised Uzumaki. The teacher had never behaved like this before. Having caught up with the teacher, the blonde walked in step with him, although his gait was unsteady. Sasuke walked behind, covering him. Once at the hotel, Kakashi took the rooms, of which there were only 2. Everyone hurried to take their rooms. What surprised Uzumaki the most was that Sasuke came to his room and said that he would spend the night with him. The excuse was that Naruto was supposed to be watching him. The blonde found it funny, because he knew that was not true. He did not know Sasuke's reasons for doing this, but he did not really care. Let him do whatever he wants, let him play whatever he wants. It's just that right now Naruto is ready to play along with him while he has time. Just don't let him get close to him. It will be excruciatingly painful, and then it will be hard to leave, leaving him alone. After visiting the springs and having a good bath, Naruto hurried to his room to take his medicine and lie down on the futon. Having settled down comfortably, the blonde closed his eyes, thinking. The sound of the door opening made him open his eyes and look at the person who entered. It turned out to be Sasuke, who, apparently having done everything he wanted, hurried back to the room assigned to him. Having sat down on his futon, he began to dry his hair, watching his former friend. Naruto closed his eyes again and seemed to withdraw into himself. Several minutes passed before the Uchiha spoke. Are you going to ignore me? For the first time, Sasuke spoke without arrogance. His voice was quiet, melodic. No. But I'm not looking for ways to communicate with you. I don't want to get close to anyone. The guy still didn't open his eyes. Communication means getting closer to you? It's funny. You know that nothing unites us. All connections are destroyed. The voice seemed unfamiliar. The brunette hadn't spoken like that for a long time. And you continue to believe in it? Well, I won't try to convince you otherwise. Definitely not now, and I won't run and look for you either. Yes, and there's no reason. You wanted freedom, so why are you here now? What's stopping you from doing what you want? Tearing his eyes away and turning his head, the blonde glanced sideways at his friend. You promised me that we would die together, and instead you stopped stopping me and are going to die. Dobe, finish the job. The brunette hisses, turning to Uzumaki. I'm just giving you freedom, that's all. You wanted so much for no one to bother you, and as soon as I do that, you appear in my life. Why? The Jinchuriki really wants to know. I don't know. It was really unexpected, but it was the truth. Uchiha realizes that he really doesn't know the answer to this question. Don't you hate me? I never hated you. You were always my friend, the one I treasured the most. Now I want to really break our bond. Naruto looked into his friend's eyes. Sasuke looked back carefully, as if looking for a catch, a lie. But having made sure that Naruto was telling the truth, he stood up abruptly, approaching the blonde. Kneeling down in front of Uzumaki's legs, which the blonde had managed to bend, he bent down, finding himself face to face with his former friend. Sasuke licked his lips, as if having come to some conclusion. Naruto glanced nervously at his friend, tried to push him away or even get out, but his attempt was immediately stopped. Grabbing him by the shoulders, the Uchiha returned the Jinchuriki to a lying position and continued to hold him while the blonde tried to break free. Surprised, Naruto glanced at his friend and saw some strange gleam in the brunette's eyes, which made his skin crawl. Uzumaki had never seen Sasuke like this before. He couldn't even define what his friend was going to do. He could only hope that Sasuke wouldn't want to strangle him. But unexpectedly, the brunette leaned in, kissing him on the lips. Naruto's eyes widened slightly. He opened his mouth in surprise, which the Uchiha took advantage of. The brunette not only didn't stop kissing, but deepened the kiss, exploring the palate, teeth and touching the other tongue with his tongue. It was as if he wanted to study what he was allowed, although Naruto didn't do it. Taking a deep breath, Uzumaki felt himself trembling. This scared him a lot, so he tried to pull himself together and push his friend away. It didn't work right away, since his hands didn't want to obey, and the weakness in his body only increased. Pushing Sasuke away, Naruto stood up and crawled away from the brunette. Only near the wall, at a good distance from the Uchiha, the blonde glanced sideways at his friend, wiping his lips with his hand. He saw that Sasuke was smirking, as if pleased with what he had done. Naruto was deeply outraged and hurt by this. Sasuke was playing with him. What are you doing, Dadabayo? The blonde shouted, still not taking his eyes off the Uchiha. I told you that I want you to hate me. Uchiha grinned and moved towards his friend. Naruto glanced at Sasuke in shock, trying to understand the words that had been spoken, but he couldn't wrap his head around the fact that the brunette had decided to finish him off in this way. He couldn't wrap his head around this kiss, and he wanted to hit his head against something heavy, at least against the wall. Or better yet, slam the Uchiha's head against the same wall the blonde was leaning against a couple of times. Uzumaki glanced nervously at his friend, trying to calm down, but all he could do was clench his hands into fists and look menacingly at his friend. The Jinchuriki frowned, turning away from Uchiha. He needed to get up and leave the room for Kakashi. It was safe there. But he couldn't leave Sasuke, because Uzumaki had been assigned as a guard. It was sickening that he couldn't leave. But it was somehow dangerous to stay. Whatever you do, and I won't do it, how can you not understand this, Sasuke? I want, dying, to think that you are my friend and will remain so forever. Sadness and pain flashed in the blue eyes, which did not pass by the brunette. Sasuke frowned sharply and moved closer to Naruto more confidently. He did not touch him, but only sat down opposite, looking into his eyes. For the first time, he saw the blonde showing his true emotions. Usually, everything was hidden under a dull smile, but it was so bright and faint that many believed in it. Everyone, except Sasuke and Team 7. They saw the emotional pain that was reflected briefly in his gaze, but immediately disappeared. He wanted to hug him, to console him, but Uzumaki seemed to be showing that this did not need to be done. He himself was used to dealing with his difficulties, clenching his fists tighter and smiling. No one saw him crying, because the sun never cries, but only warms, gives hope. But now everything was different, and Sasuke saw it. Naruto simply did not see any more point in hiding everything that had been inside him for a long time and had been accumulating. Now it all came out, breaking the guy outwardly. Uchiha saw that Naruto was shaking, but the boy stubbornly tried to hold on confidently. He saw that pain was enveloping the young man, and the blonde involuntarily, without noticing, squeezed his t-shirt at chest level where his heart was. How deeply he breathed, trying not to suffocate. But the Jinchuriki seemed not to notice this, only looked at Sasuke directly with such a stubborn look that the brunette could not move from his place to help. Sasuke saw how bad Naruto was, but he could only look calmly, without emotions, as if he had really lost them. Not a single muscle twitched from Uzumaki's words, but such a fire was flaring up inside that he wanted to rip out his heart so as not to feel it. He knew that he could help Naruto, but he did nothing. Naruto was a rival who should die at his hands. He had to kill him himself, and until that time Uzumaki should live. Reaching out to the blonde, Uchiha didn't expect Naruto to recoil from him and immediately, somehow unnaturally, begin to fall to the side. He saw how Uzumaki exhaled convulsively and sighed, as if the pain had really overcome him, and he was about to lose consciousness or worse. Sasuke was immediately there, not understanding how he managed it, and caught his friend. "Naruto?" It came out a little louder. The voice was scared, but Sasuke couldn't do anything about it. It was the second time that Uzumaki fell in front of him, as if it was the end. "Don't you dare close your eyes. I beg you, almost in a whisper. I don't want you to die. I don't want you to leave me like Itachi, like my parents did. You are the only one who remains faithful to me." Carefully touching Naruto's face, the brunette opens his soul to his not-so-former friend. "I'm glad that at least now you told the truth. Naruto's voice is very quiet, there is no ringing voice that was before. I will believe in you even after, because you are the most precious person to me." His eyes closed, and the hand that touched the Uchiha's shoulder fell, touching the floor. The dark eyes widened, and the brunette who was holding the blonde swayed, falling with his head on the Jinchuriki's body. He grabbed his friend's body, pulling him towards himself, listening to his heartbeat. Only after hearing a quiet heartbeat did he exhale, trying to pull himself together. Sasuke frantically recalled that Naruto had mentioned to Kakashi that he had some pills prescribed by Tsunade in his backpack that could dull the pain and help for a while. Carefully picking up the blonde's body, the Uchiha stood up, moving towards the backpack. He didn't want to leave Uzumaki on the floor, so he dragged him to the bed, carefully covering him with a thin blanket. Then, finding the backpack, he rummaged around, pulling out a bottle of pills. Confusedly glancing first at the bottle, and then at Uzumaki, the brunette took a bottle of water and took a small sip from it. Sasuke unscrewed the cap from the jar and pulled out one pill and put it in his mouth. Leaning towards Naruto. He needed the blonde to swallow it, but the brunette didn't know how to do that. Therefore, trusting his intuition, he pressed on his chin, forcing his mouth to open, leaned over and began to pour the liquid along with the pill. As soon as the deed was done, he moved away from his face a little, watching the guy's reaction. The Uchiha saw how pale his friend's face was, how his chest rarely rose to inhale and exhale, receiving a small amount of oxygen. It made him sick, because the brunette had never seen Naruto so weak. Even when the charming little blonde was hated by the village, he never cried. He only smiled radiantly. Sasuke knew about it. His heart sank every time he saw what the village did to this child. Even then, he was like part of the family. And only now did Sasuke begin to understand the meaning of these feelings that always haunted him as soon as he saw Naruto. Yes, at first he considered him a bore, incapable of anything, but the closer he got to know him, the more he understood. He saw how Uzumaki was trying to gain recognition, and how now he was indifferent to what he had achieved. Now the village loved him and was ready to protect him, but the blonde himself was pushing away help, wanting to be alone. To die alone, just like he had in childhood. He did not understand that now he would never be alone, because all his friends believed in him, strived to match him, to be equal to this purposeful guy. But Uzumaki did not care about this anymore. He was disappointed in himself, having come up with a bunch of excuses to be alone. The Uchiha was familiar with this, but not so much as to think that they were similar. The brunette believed that he could not become stronger, because the more connections, the weaker he became. And Naruto just wanted to go alone, without anyone worrying about him and suffering. He didn't want to burden anyone. He believed that if he remained like this, he would become useless to anyone, so he cut off the threads that connected him to his friends in advance. Sasuke reached his hand to the guy's hair and started to sort through it. He wanted to take away the pain that Naruto was holding inside. But he couldn't. The Uchiha had to only touch the guy, touching his hair, cheeks, lips. He wanted to touch his lips again, because the brunette's lips still had the taste of their kiss. He really wanted to hug him and not let go, but Sasuke only leaned in, giving him a weightless kiss. Nothing would be like before, because the feelings had returned with such force that Sasuke understood that he would not be able to behave calmly if something happened to Naruto. He simply would not be able to stand still and was ready to do everything to protect this blonde misunderstanding, who did not want to live now. Sasuke was going to make Uzumaki live, even if he still had to make him hate him, which he did not really want. But not to let Naruto be alone and die. Comment on feelings? I am a very bad writer, since I write very rarely. I really hope that someone was waiting for my story. Cold determination Commentary on cold determination. Guys, please the author with your comments, smiley face, they really inspire me. I tried to write more this time, and yes, the next chapter is already in progress. Thank you to my beta for putting up with my long chapters XD. Naruto woke up early in the morning, when the sun was just rising in the sky, already slightly warming everything around with its warm rays. The blonde opened his eyes, immediately staring at the ceiling. Uzumaki had to work hard to remember what happened yesterday. And when the realization and events of yesterday appeared in his head, the Jinchuriki only sighed, realizing that there was no point in worrying about this. Sasuke would not have done anything to him, because before Naruto closed his eyes, he saw his friend's puzzled face. Sasuke always seemed unperturbed, but still, you could pull real thoughts out of him, which showed his real self. It's just that Uchiha believed that his emotions were also a weakness. He was wrong, but it was impossible to convince him otherwise. Stubborn. Turning his head slightly. The blonde glanced sideways in surprise at Sasuke, who was sleeping next to him, his head on Uzumaki's shoulder. He didn't hug him in his sleep, only his head rested on his shoulder. It was cute on the one hand, but on the other, it caused Naruto unnecessary emotions that he hadn't had before. He didn't even want to think about them. No, the blonde couldn't think that he liked his friend, and that he liked this closeness now. No. He didn't even want to think about it. Carefully pulling his shoulder out and putting a pillow under it, Naruto stood up and walked towards the exit. He needed to get some fresh air. He didn't know what time it was, but he assumed it was still very early. Uzumaki knew that Kakashi-sensei might be sleeping or reading the perverted hermit's book. Yes, there probably wouldn't be any more new books from the teacher. Naruto involuntarily drooped, remembering the moments when he traveled with the pervert. The old man didn't teach him much, but he became a family member close. Jiraiya believed that his student would be the child from the prophecy. But something didn't add up, because Minato, that is, his father, was dead, and he, Naruto, would soon join his parents. There was still Konan, but the girl was unlikely to become the salvation of the entire shinobi world. No one would believe the former Akatsuki member. After all, the prophecy was false. Finding himself in the fresh air, Naruto sat down on the porch, shivering from the wind. It had not yet become completely warm, the sun was just rising. Uzumaki glanced sideways at the dawn, recalling how many times he had seen the dawn as a child, climbing on his father's head. He had always felt cozy there, as if he felt that the stone face of the fourth was a close person to him. The Jinchuriki sighed, turning his gaze to the old tree that grew to the right of the house. The tree's branches bent toward the ground, but the trunk itself seemed to be trying to stretch upward. It seemed to the blonde that they were similar, because he had lived like this his whole life. Many people were pressing on him, but he moved forward, trying to help everyone, to save them. Perhaps he was doing this in vain. Naruto immediately shook his head, driving away these thoughts. He had always done everything right. And even now he was doing the right thing, trying to distance himself from everyone. It was better for everyone this way. Uzumaki didn't immediately notice how Uchiha sat down next to him, turning his gaze to the same tree. The blonde glanced at his friend, but said nothing. They sat in silence for a couple of minutes, each thinking about their own. Uzumaki had different, sometimes delirious thoughts. The guy didn't know what Uchiha was thinking, and he didn't really want to know. Right now, he was happy with the silence that stood between them. It was calming and cozy. The Jinchuriki raised his head up, looking at the sky. The sun had already begun to warm. Now it was not so much cold as warm. Even the wind was no longer piercing, but pleasant, warming. The blonde wanted to live his remaining days like this, finally feeling free. But there were still many things that needed to be done, undertaken. He wanted to live. But it was impossible. Although Naruto for some reason knew that there was a way out of his illness. He knew it, but he didn't tell anyone. No one needed to know about it. No. This wasn't the surgery that Tsunade had suggested. This was a dangerous treatment that had a small chance of recovery. Rather, he could lose the last days, weeks that he had left. He didn't want to lose them either. The blonde sighed, realizing that he had never been afraid of anything before and had moved forward without thinking about the consequences. But damn it, he wanted to do it. He just wanted to live and finish everything himself, what he had promised, what had been entrusted to him. His father had appeared to him in a dream that night, and told him about this method. Naruto was surprised, because his father couldn't know about it, because Minato couldn't offer his son a dangerous solution either. But it was clear that his father wanted his son to live, so that he could live the life he dreamed of. He saw Naruto's desire to live and couldn't help but help, even though he knew it was too dangerous. Naruto bit his lip, remembering his dream. Yes, perhaps his father's advice would have helped. But it would require sacrifice. Naruto didn't want to sacrifice what he had. He couldn't do that. It would mean betraying him. Dobe, if you think so hard, your head will explode. Naruto, you are contraindicated to think too much. You have too many crazy ideas in your head. Sasuke was as cold as always, although his gaze said a lot. Naruto turned to his friend, still thinking about the treatment. His eyes met the Uchiha's, but the brunette felt like the Jinchuriki didn't see him. But the blonde still answered. I just need to die so I don't get in your way. Naruto's gaze returned to the tree, examining it. Say that again and I'll kill you. Sasuke hissed, clenching his teeth and grabbing his friend's shoulders. Kill. Then, as if distracted, he continued about something else. The method my father proposed is not bad, but dangerous. I won't survive, although it's worth a try. I wonder where my stubbornness went. The blonde tilted his head, continuing to look at the tree. Naruto, what are you even talking about? The renegade growled, trying to wake Uzumaki up. I'm also interested in what Minato-san could have told you, Naruto? Kakashi appeared on the porch. He jumped down, landing on the ground, and approached the former members of Team 7. He was already dressed, although his hair was disheveled, indicating that he had just gotten dressed. His gaze was interested. Sitting down next to his student, the copy ninja looked into the blonde's eyes, trying to find an answer there. The Uchiha snorted, letting go of his friend's shoulders. But he did not leave, remaining to wait for an answer. For some reason, Naruto was not afraid to speak his thoughts to Kakashi, but not to his former friend, preferring to speak either in fragments or incomprehensible words that only caused confusion. Naruto was silent for a while, as if collecting his thoughts and putting them on the shelves. Then he perked up a little, and his gaze cleared up. He smiled only slightly, looking at the teacher. This smile was alive, and the guy's behavior only said that he was alive, or rather, coming to life. Kakashi frowned, trying to understand what was the reason. Sasuke became wary, carefully examining Naruto, but he did not pay attention to him, and only seemed pleased. How can I explain this? Naruto frowned, losing his smile. His face took on a more thoughtful look, as if he was choosing his words. My father told me that I needed to go to the old temple, but it seems to be on Akatsuki territory. I think that's what he said. The guy's lips tightened slightly, as if he didn't like this information. They can help me there. But it's dangerous, because even there, in the temple, there are no guarantees that they will help me. More precisely, there are no guarantees of more than 30% that I will survive. But how could Minato-san tell you that? His chakra disappeared completely, back when you fought Pain. Kakashi was puzzled. He knew that his teacher couldn't advise an ill-considered option. Minato was a genius who calculated his moves ahead. At least he tried to do so. In a dream. He warned me, told me about all the consequences. Naruto squeezed the hair on his head with the hand that he managed to lift. Damn, I'm so glad to see my father again. So there's a chance you'll be healthy? The teacher thoughtfully decided to ask again. Perhaps, but it's even more dangerous than doing the surgery. That's why I don't know what to do. Uzumaki shrugged, glancing at Sasuke, who for some reason didn't intervene in the conversation. Uchiha was thoughtful, as if he was also thinking about something. Only because he felt the blonde's gaze on him, he looked up and looked back, trying to convey his thoughts and feelings. Naruto shuddered because he understood what Sasuke wanted to tell him. Yes, this had never happened before. And it was not so much unpleasant, but rather unexpected. Naruto. But Uchiha didn't have time to finish, because Naruto interrupted him. You wanted me to die by your hand, Sasuke, so you will have the opportunity. I will fight you. I am ready to die with you, as I promised. Uzumaki stood up, stretching. Naruto, it sounded too menacing, loud. Sasuke jumped up after him, looking angrily at the blonde. Uzumaki just shrugged his shoulders. You wanted this yourself. And I'm giving you this chance, after all, weren't you the one who recently said that you wanted to kill me? So, I want to fulfill the promise I gave you. Sasuke frowned, as if he didn't understand what his friend said. Would you rather be saved than die? Sasuke asked coldly, realizing that he had flared up and shown emotions again. Yeah, that's what I said. Naruto walked away, feeling the pain return. He hadn't taken the pills yet, which was necessary. Taking a couple of breaths, Naruto tried to calm his heart, but it preferred to ache. Giving up on it, Uzumaki turned his gaze to his friends, who were watching his actions, continuing to think about something. Naruto saw their experiences, felt their feelings. It seemed so possible. But before, he could do this too, but did not want to learn. There was simply no need. But after visiting the toads, he learned not only to meditate, fight, and use his head for its intended purpose, but also to tune in to the emotions of other people, to feel their feelings. It was useful. Although now he did not believe in the truth of the feelings of the Uchiha, who seemed to be against the fight now, but wanted to save the blonde. The Jinchuriki did not like this. Sasuke was not like that, as if something happened at night, as if something changed his friend. Shaking his head, driving away these strange thoughts, Uzumaki went to the tree, sitting down under it. He sat cross-legged, intending to meditate like that for some time. It was necessary to learn to enter the hermit mode even with pain. It was difficult, because the pain was distracting, but after some time the blonde was able to pull himself together, tuning in. Opening his eyes, Naruto looked around, noticing the changes that were happening nearby or several kilometers away. He saw Sasuke and Kakashi already sitting on the porch, talking quietly, as if nothing had happened and never happened. Then he felt someone else's chakra. Someone else's. They were being watched, which was not surprising. He skillfully hid his chakra. Even Sasuke and Kakashi could not feel it, but for Naruto it was easier now. He felt this world, felt the chakra, knew its color. Even it had its own color and smell. Sasuke, by the way, was not saturated with a nasty smell, and the chakra was not dangerous, threatening. Rather cold. Blue. Kakashi's was silver, like his hair. Not that it was dangerous, but there were metallic notes of uncontrollability, menace. Naruto stood up, brushed the dust off his pants, and hurried to find the dangerous chakra, heading for its source. Kakashi, having caught the student's movement, stood up, trying to follow him. But the blonde raised his hand, stopping him. Naruto stopped too, bit his finger, folding seals and summoning a toad. It was necessary to use the moment of surprise. A small toad appeared, which looked at Uzumaki with awe. "Naruto-san, it's nice to see you again." Naruto smiled, sitting down to pick up the toad, placing it on his shoulder. "Hello, Kaguya. I have a favor to ask of you. You can feel it now, right?" Naruto turned towards the source. "Yes, perhaps. However, it is an unpleasant feeling." The toad tilted her head, looking in the same direction as Naruto. "I understand you, Naruto." And then she disappeared, dissolved in a cloud of smoke. "What's up, Naruto?" Kakashi came closer, trying to see what his student had seen. But he saw nothing and felt nothing. Sasuke came too, putting his hand on his sword, ready to fight, although he didn't feel any danger either. "He's dangerous, he's armed, he hides his presence well, but I can catch him." Naruto licked his lips, feeling his little toad already approaching his target. "Well, now it's time." Having already folded other seals, the cloak appeared, which he received as a gift from the toads. It was a memory of the teacher. Having tied the protector of his village, Naruto sat down a little, giving himself more support. And then he ran, accelerating and running up to the roof of the house, pushing off from it with all his strength. In the air, having created several clones for himself, he created Rasengan, but he himself was left without it. Chakra began to move, sensing a threat, but for some reason not back, but forward, towards. Naruto grinned, folded a new seal and summoned the toad again, but this time stronger and larger. The toad, knowing what to do, grabs Uzumaki and throws him towards the enemy. Flying, Naruto finds himself in a clearing, and all his clones surround her, preventing the escape of the one who was now also in the clearing. The man grinned, but kept his hood up, preferring to remain unrecognizable. Naruto looked at the one whose chakra was hostile, black. Everything screamed danger, although the enemy himself did not seem strong. And then the man raised his head and Naruto saw a mask. Madara. They had met before, but Naruto had not told anyone about it. There was no need. That was bad. But what was even worse was that Kakashi and Sasuke were already very close. They should not have been allowed here. They should not have heard the conversation or interfered at all. Here we meet again, the bearer of the nine-tailed fox, Uzumaki Naruto. Nice to meet you. It's good that I met you. There is feigned joy in your voice, but the blonde knows that it is a lie. And you are hostile, as it seems. Maybe we can talk, I have an offer for you. Uzumaki shuddered slightly, receiving information from his clone. Sasuke pierced one of them, finding himself in the clearing. A couple more meters and he and Kakashi would hear everything. I offer you my body so that we can pull the Kyuubi out of you, and I will let Sasuke go, he will become free. The fox in Naruto's mind growled, not trusting a single word of the traitor who used his power. Naruto looked away, remembering that he couldn't look the Uchihas in the eye, because they could use their power to pull the fox out by force. He was in solidarity with the nine-tailed fox now and mentally reassured him that he wouldn't let Madara do that. The Kyuubi was important to him, and he wasn't going to say goodbye to him voluntarily. The fox only chuckled at that, but said the name. Naruto frowned for a second, trying to figure out what it was for, to which the fox laughed, saying that it was his name. I know you're sick, Naruto. Uchiha continued, ignoring the new spectators. He was only interested in the blonde, who was calm and collected, but thoughtful. Obito thought he had managed to interest the boy. I can let you die painlessly. Oh, really? Or maybe you asked me if I wanted to die by your hand and have the fox pulled out of me? The Jinchuriki spat angrily, looking at Madara. You don't know anything about me or Kurama to demand such a thing from me. Who is Kurama? And don't go off topic. The masked man was puzzled. Naruto remembered that his 5 minutes were running out, but he had managed to send 2 clones away, gather natural chakra, and the scroll lay under his feet, camouflaged. Kaguya had done her best. So, having exited the mode, Naruto sat down on the ground, ready to respond at any moment. I will not die from your hand, but from Sasuke's. In any case, you will not get my fox. This is my demon, who will die with me and be born again, becoming stronger and more powerful. Kurama is strong, and he will take revenge on you, those who betrayed him. Naruto shrugged, pulling a kunai out of his bag. Sasuke can't kill you, and you know it. The shinobi grinned, folding his arms across his chest. You're wrong too. I'm an obstacle to his revenge on Konoha. Naruto smiled slightly. His revenge is more important than his friends. Yes, he wouldn't mind giving me death. Boy, you're as stupid as your father. Madara boomed, coming a little closer. Well, it's genes. Although your father beat you, that means I can too. The kunai rose, pointing at the enemy. Confident boy. The man spat angrily, heading towards Uzumaki, pulling out a kunai. The Jinchuriki bit his finger, pressing it to the ground, shouting, reverse summoning. A pop was heard nearby, and the clone disappeared, transferring all of his natural chakra. Only at the last moment did Uzumaki manage to dodge the kunai, placing his kunai as a shield. Jumping away from him, Madara only chuckled, getting ready to attack again. Naruto stood up, also getting ready to move. But the pain hit with force and the blonde swayed, and his face slightly twisted. Gritting his teeth, the guy tried to pull himself together, but the pain did not allow him to even move from the spot. Uzumaki sighed resignedly, at least leveling his position. Kakashi and Sasuke were already standing nearby, pulling out their kunai. I'll do it myself. Naruto croaks through his teeth. I didn't ask your permission, Dobe. Sasuke recalled, frowning, not taking his eyes off the man in the mask. Oh, Sasuke, what a surprise. You'll help me, right? The man said sweetly. I don't need you or your organization. All I need is the host of the Nine Tails and the village's revenge. You are useless. Sasuke curls his lips, answering rudely. Oh, so you betrayed me. Another traitor. Madara echoes him angrily, then looks at Naruto. You remake everyone for yourself, boy. Naruto just shrugs. Okay. I'll retreat now, but then I'll come back and then it will definitely be the end. Do you hear, Naruto? Naruto smiled. I'm done for a long time. Another couple of weeks and I'll never see your face again. The blonde answered him indifferently. So I have a couple of weeks. That's very little, the man said thoughtfully, and then disappeared. Naruto fell down, ending up on the ground. He just sighed and ran his hand through his hair, lifting his forehead protector. The pain squeezed his heart harder, and spread throughout his body, giving him hellish agony. What do you mean, a couple of weeks? Sasuke asked rudely, looking at the blonde. I told you that I know my date of death. Kurama and I calculated it when we tried to talk. Naruto frowned. He didn't want to talk about it. And he didn't need to know about it, Uchiha. It just didn't matter. All Naruto was trying to do now was get rid of the pain. Kakashi sat down next to him, holding out the pills and a bottle of water. Smiling at the teacher, Naruto took the bottle and unscrewed the cap, then took the jar, taking out a couple of pills, and threw them in his mouth, washing them down with water. How much? Sasuke did not lag behind. How much? The Jinchuriki threw his head back, looking into his friend's eyes. How many weeks? There is steel in the voice. It's enough for our battle. The blonde answers calmly. No, Uzumaki, that's not enough. Sasuke growls, grabbing his friend by the shirt and lifting him up, forcing him to stand. Naruto grimaces, but says nothing, although for some reason he can't feel his legs. I don't want to fight you while you're weak. I'm not weak. Naruto gets angry, throwing off the Uchiha's hands, but immediately loses his balance, as his legs refuse to support him. Damn. He gets even angrier. Yeah, move already. Naruto hisses, looking at his legs. Naruto? Kakashi manages to hold his hand, offering his shoulders so that his student can lean on him. Naruto almost hangs on the teacher, frowning even more and looking angrily at his feet. You won't be able to fight me in this condition, and I don't want an easy victory. Sasuke continues, watching his friends counting attempts to get up. Your legs can't even support you. Naruto looks up, sending shivers down Sasuke's spine. His gaze is so hopeless that the Uchiha is at a loss, looking at his friend and falling silent. I can't feel my legs. Naruto breathes out. equals 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 the decision to save equals 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 equals. Commentary on the rescue decision. The author sincerely asked for forgiveness, but I was so buried in my studies that I couldn't finish the chapter, which I did only today. Smiley face. I hope you like the part, although as for me it turned out to be about nothing. Sad face. I'm thinking about maybe freezing the fanfic. It hasn't been written yet because the author was in a hurry. Naruto didn't understand how this could happen. His legs couldn't let him down. Not now after all, it was supposed to happen in about a week. And how could he finish his business now? The guy didn't know and was becoming increasingly despondent and apathetic. He had already stopped holding on to Kakashi and dropped his hands, feeling that he had become too helpless. In front of those who were dear to him. It was disgusting, because the blonde didn't want this. He didn't want anyone to see how he was becoming like this. He imagined another ending, in which he would hide from everyone in his secluded place for the last week of his life, living his days quietly and without loved ones. But everything collapsed like a house of cards. Having fallen to the ground, Uzumaki sighed and tried to collect his emotions, to hide them. But nothing worked, and the boy was increasingly overcome with excitement and trembling. Naruto was suffocating, realizing that he could not cope. He simply withdrew into himself, falling deep into his consciousness, closer to the fox, who could protect. Kurama felt the boy's fear, so he pulled him towards himself, trying to save, to protect. The fox wanted to help its host, but Uzumaki was not allowed. They shook him and forced him to return to the body. Kyubi growled, because only one person could do this. The owner of the Sharingan. Uchiha. Naruto, don't you dare. You can't give up. Sasuke shook him off, looking at his friend with concern. He felt through the connection all the emotions that Uzumaki was currently experiencing. You are the one who never gave up. Breathe. Or I will make you breathe and live. Sasuke, you don't understand. I'm already a corpse with a couple of days left to live. Nothing can be changed. The blonde said hoarsely, looking up at the brunette. He simply couldn't stand it anymore. He told the truth, which only made everyone more hurt. I said that I won't let you die. Sasuke hissed, grabbing Naruto by the shoulders, and then pulled him towards himself, hugging him. He continued a little quieter. You are all that is left for me. You have to live. I should have been killed by you. I don't want you to die. You're selfish, Sasuke. After all, nothing can be your way. I'm going to die anyway, that's my fate. The guy said quietly, burying his face in his friend's shoulder. He believed in his words because the illness would never let him go. Sasuke froze, feeling his friend's breath, feeling Naruto's head pressing, but it was just a good discomfort that he didn't want to lose. Uchiha couldn't believe Uzumaki's words, so he began to feverishly think about what he could do. The guy already roughly imagined his actions, all that was left was to put them into action. But knowing his friend, he would resist, choosing death over salvation. All for the sake of others, but not for himself. And he had to take care of himself at least once. Taking a deep breath, Sasuke lowered his hands, catching his friend to lift him up. Naruto, although he had grown since they had last seen each other, still weighed next to nothing. It was a little heavy, but bearable. Standing up, the brunette walked to the tree, sitting his friend down next to it so that Naruto could lean his back against something. Naruto only grumbled at these actions, saying that he wanted to go back to the ground and for the damn Uchiha to put him down. Sasuke didn't listen. He was already thinking through the whole plan for crossing the Akatsuki border. He was going to visit the temple that Minato-san told his son about. The renegade believed that it existed, because he had heard about it briefly from Orochimaru, who liked to chat about such places. He just needed to get Naruto to agree to go voluntarily, although Sasuke could just take him and carry him there. He knew that Uzumaki might not forgive him, but he wanted the best. For the first time, he wanted to help not himself, but a close person whom he loves. He loves, and he does not intend to abandon his other half, because they are truly parts of one whole, as the snake Sannin said. All that was left was to enlist Kakashi's support. Turning to face his teacher, Sasuke immediately realized from his gaze that the copy ninja was in complete agreement with him. The Uchiha smiled slightly, shaking his head and turning his head back towards Uzumaki, who was angry and puffing, looking more and more like a cat. The outlaw couldn't help but be touched by this picture, although he didn't show it outwardly. Reaching his hand into his friend's hair, Sasuke first touched his forehead, checking his temperature. The brunette knew that the fox did not allow illnesses to take over his body, but everything could still change now. But no, his forehead was cold, which the guy couldn't help but be happy about. Pulling out a light camp blanket with his other hand, he covered his friend, trying to warm him up, or rather, he wanted the blonde to sleep while he and Kakashi discussed the situation. "Dobe, get some sleep." He stroked her head, slightly tousling her hair. "I don't want to, Databayo. You weren't listening to me at all just now, team." Naruto continued to grumble, not paying attention to the Uchiha's hand. But he still obeyed and closed his eyes. He himself understood that he had to calm down. And sleep was a better alternative in this situation. Sasuke watched the boy for a couple more minutes, and then, making sure he was asleep, he stood up and walked over to Kakashi, sitting down next to his former teacher. They were silent for a couple of minutes, collecting their thoughts and deciding what to do next. It was hard to make a decision, but still, the life of the loudest shinobi, who was cherished and loved by many, was at stake. "Sasuke, do you really want to help Naruto?" The copy ninja watched his student closely, trying to figure out if he was telling the truth or lying. "I don't want him to die, Kakashi. It was only recently that I realized what he meant to me. Last night helped me realize what I tried to hide deep inside myself." For the first time, Sasuke spoke a lot and the words flowed of their own accord, not under duress. "I have to save him now. After all, it was he who did not abandon me when everyone else turned away. I have to do it, and no one else, because then it will change his mind. He will understand that death is not an option. I know what that is." Sasuke frowned, remembering how he wanted to follow his brother after his death, because he did not understand what was keeping him here now. But then he remembered Naruto, Team 7, and then he learned the truth about Itachi and the village from Madara and was filled with revenge. And then he realized that revenge was not the solution, and Naruto's words, which he had said not so long ago, remembering Nagato, convinced him of this. Uzumaki, damn it, was always right. But for some reason, most people simply did not listen to him, considering him a monster who could destroy the village. And Uzumaki, meanwhile, shared all the pain and hatred towards him, smiling so sunny and childishly naive, as if he did not understand anything. He knew since childhood that all the hateful glances were directed at him. He only did not know the truth for a long time, but did this only make him stronger? He was not afraid of anything and anyone, except for the loneliness that always haunted him. And if not for Irika, then perhaps there would never have been the current Naruto Uzumaki. But there would have been a guy who takes revenge on everyone and hates. Sasuke didn't want this fate. "You want to take it to that temple?" The sensei frowns, understanding his student more and more. "Yes, I want to save him, even if I have to die. I am ready to give my life for him, because without him I have nothing to do here." The brunette looks back confidently, clenching his fists tighter. "But you understand that Naruto is against this? He doesn't want to sacrifice either me or you." The man sighs, turning away to the fire that he had already managed to light. "I know." He rubbed his neck with his hand, lowered his head a little lower, trying to come up with a plan. "I have to do it alone. Then he won't hate you." "But what about you? You'll get it from him in full. He doesn't want to lose you, so at the first sign of danger he'll try to save you." The brunette shrugs, looking at the fire, and answers. "Kakashi, I'm not a child anymore who could only think about himself. I can survive all of Naruto's hatred. I have to do this to understand him." The brunette glanced sideways at the blonde, who was sleeping, not hearing this conversation. "I understand that you don't trust me. But I want to say only one thing. Naruto will not forgive you if you come with us, because you are dear to him. He protects all of his connections and wants to protect you, keeping you from danger. It's stupid. But that's what Dobe is all about. You're right, Sasuke, but you're a renegade, and you can't go for a walk without the Hokage's permission. I have to get you an amnesty, so I have to go back to Konoha. But I can't leave you here alone either. That's the dilemma. The copy ninja shrugs. I have an idea that you will like. You will be able to go to the village in peace, and if I break my promise, I will die. Sasuke grins, remembering Orochimaru's lessons. Kakashi tilts his head to the right in surprise, looking at his former student in surprise. It was a tempting offer that promised guarantees. After all, the main thing now was to save Naruto, so after hearing the conditions and the principle of one technique, Hatake nodded his head affirmatively, agreeing to the conditions. And a few minutes later they began to implement it. Soon Kakashi could already go back. Quickly getting ready, the former ANBU member disappeared into thin air, trying to get to the village as soon as possible. It was necessary to hurry, before it was really too late. Still, Naruto was able to change Sasuke, which only made him happy. Finally, the guy thought not only about himself and his strength, but also about someone else. Kakashi had no doubt that the feeling that Uchiha had for the blonde was love. It was too noticeable. Although a little stupid Naruto did not notice this, and maybe did not try. The main thing now was that Uzumaki would be able to survive, because the renegade would not let his future and his feelings die. Naruto was always the key to victory. Naruto was the one who needed to be protected, because the future of the world depended on him. Meanwhile, Sasuke rose from the ground, coming closer to his partner and sitting down next to him. Lowering his head onto his friend's shoulder, Uchiha listened, trying to catch the heartbeat. And having made sure that the heart continued to beat, he closed his eyes and fell asleep, knowing that no one would disturb them today. The clones would report the danger if the enemy tried to attack. Dobe, you understand that now I won't let you go anywhere, were Sasuke's last words before he fell asleep. There were two of them. Commentary on there are now two of them. I hope you like the part. I'm waiting for your comments and ratings. And yes, I'm a bad author, since I drag out the chapters so much. Forgive me, the sinner equals straight face equals. Naruto exhaled through his mouth, waking up. His chest was torn apart by pain, and the blonde couldn't breathe out calmly. Wincing, the Jinchuriki glanced to the right, watching his friend. Sasuke was still asleep, hugging the Uzumaki with his arms. They had somehow managed to fall to the ground, and now the brunette was hugging Naruto, as if protecting him from others. This would have happened if Sasuke had an aura that he could release at the right moment, but he didn't have one. Although what Orochimaru taught him is still unknown. That slimy guy could teach the Uchiha a lot that would suit the parameters of his new body. Carefully pulling out first one hand, then the other, Uzumaki stood up, although it was awkward, and his back shot with pain. The guy still couldn't feel his legs. He winced in pain, but continued to rise, only to lean on the tree trunk under which Uchiha had seated him yesterday. He needed to decide for himself what he could do in such a situation. Give up? It would be easy, but Sasuke, who had decided to show compassion for his friend, would not let him do it. Naruto was already twisted from the looks that Uchiha and Hatake were throwing in his direction. It was humiliating, because Naruto had never given up, even when he was little. He didn't know why the village despised him so much, but he continued to smile at everyone and play pranks to attract the attention of the villagers. These were only moments, but Uzumaki felt happy, because then he did not feel the loneliness that followed him on his heels. Even now, this devil grabbed him by the throat and wouldn't let go, intending to take him with her into oblivion. And then comes death, smiling somehow ominously, knowing what a tasty morsel it could snatch if it took the blonde with it. Naruto agreed with them now, that all he could do was wait for his end, relaxing in the grip of loneliness and stretching out his hands to death, wanting to give himself without any desires. Dreams may remain unrealizable, go to those who can make them come true. You just need to convey your will, desire, and someone will respond to it. Take it as an idea and bring it to life. Trying to take a deep breath, Naruto coughed, feeling pain in every moving part of his body. Covering his mouth with his hand, Uzumaki tried to muffle the sounds so as not to wake Sasuke. But the coughing did not stop, and his mouth began to taste like iron. Raising an eyebrow in surprise, the Jinchuriki removed his hand and looked at it. His entire palm was covered in blood, which flowed down his fingers, dripping down onto the ground. Naruto was horrified. This was really bad. Turning his head towards his friend, he came across a burning gaze of dark eyes. The Uchiha first looked at Uzumaki's face with incomprehension, noticing traces of blood, and then turned his gaze to his friend's hand, jumping up from his place and sitting down next to him. He looked at Naruto with concern, so much so that the blonde even flinched from this look. Uzumaki saw such a range of different emotions in the Uchiha for the first time. It was unusual and alien. Naruto? The brunette's voice trembled slightly, but his gaze spoke volumes, asking how the blood appeared and what happened. Naruto just snorted at this concern and wiped the blood on his windbreaker, and removed the blood from his lips with his sleeve. He was not going to explain anything, because his personal hen would start watching him even more. And he never needed care. The time had passed when he wanted to be needed by anyone. Now it was too late to look for someone who could extract the desire to be needed from him. Even the Uchiha could not do this, because Naruto hid it deep inside, where the fox guards the entrance well, knowing the desire of his Biju. By the way, Kurama was not such an asshole, since he so zealously protected his host, although he understood that Naruto had too little time left. He did not sympathize, but wished only for this time to become a wall to protect his fragile guardian. And sympathy was not felt in his actions, only care. It was nice. Naruto could only wish for the fox to stay with him until the end, but he understood that then Kurama would die with him. The guy didn't want this, so he promised to let him go, without taking any wishes or promises in return. If he wants to take revenge on Konoha, then that's his right. Where's Kakashi-sensei? Naruto changed the subject, looking around the clearing. He wasn't going to talk to Sasuke about topics that only concerned the missing Nin. Sasuke? What did you do to him? He frowned, trying to understand what was going on here. Naruto, Uchiha said, drawing out the last syllable, dissatisfied that he had not been answered. He had already regained his indifference, pulling on his usual mask, and was only looking at his friend tensely, trying to understand from his gaze what he was hiding or did not want to say. But the Jinchuriki's eyes remained silent, becoming calmer. Naruto changed in an instant, ceasing to be flighty, idiotic. It was as if he had become several years older, aware of himself and his situation. This was too much even for Uchiha. He wanted to see his friend's cheerful smile again, to hear words that spoke volumes, like a dream of becoming Hokage, like a desire to save him, a friend who had gone too far into darkness, that hatred had become the best companion. You didn't answer my question. Sasuke looks down at the sweater, looking at the bloody trail. Are you sick? And why didn't you wake me up? The brunette frowns, refusing to accept the fact that Uzumaki is not going to open up to him. They are connected, and it is impossible to close what entangles them. These are just symptoms of my illness, so don't make a tragedy out of it, Uchiha. The blonde throws angrily, turning away from his friend's stubborn gaze. Where is Kakashi-sensei? Went to Konoha to tell the Hokage that you and I are going to that temple. The missing Nin states the fact, noticing how Uzumaki's eyebrows draw together and his lips purse into a thin line. It was obvious that he didn't like the idea, but everything had already been decided without his participation. You forgot to ask me. The guy hisses angrily, throwing off the blanket that Sasuke threw over him yesterday. I'm not going to change anything, and you should go, damn you, where you were going. I, as an obstacle for you, stopped interfering with you, clearing the way. Leave me alone already. I don't want help. The blonde wheezes, clenching his hands into fists, continuing to drill angrily into his friend's face. He doesn't even look him in the eyes. Doesn't want to. Naruto, you still don't understand anything. Sasuke grabs Uzumaki's face confidently, lifts it up and looks at it for a long time and carefully, continuing. I can't let you go, just like you can't let me go. Our connection won't break, and I, like you, will walk along it, feeling the moment when your other half will feel so bad that you want to rip your own throat out just so that this series of pain would stop and your other half could live in peace. I feel your pain, just like you felt mine when you tried to bring me back to the village. He exhaled and still finished his thought. I haven't quite figured it out yet, but I've definitely begun to realize our connection now. Even now I can tell that you're in pain and you feel lonely. Well, I feel the same way now, but to a lesser extent. What the hell, Databeo? Team, are you overheated? Naruto is surprised that Sasuke started to feel their connection, because it was always one-sided. What has changed during this time? You broke our connection back then, and I was just trying to hold it in my hands, holding both ends. I don't need your help, or your sympathy. I'm not a child and I can handle my problems myself. It has always been like this, and will be for the rest of my life. Naruto pulls his face out of the grip, feeling sick and dizzy. He tries to crawl away hesitantly, intending to somehow return home. His best solution is to summon a toad. Although in his head there is a desire to open the cage in which Kurama is sitting. He has the key, all that remains is to open the cage, releasing the fox. Uzumaki would not even mind if Kyuubi captured his mind. He would retreat and give the opportunity to exist as a vessel for the tailed beast. Turning and leaning on his elbows, Naruto bit his finger, began to form seals, but his hand was intercepted, forcing him to raise it a little higher. Uzumaki looked angrily at his best friend and choked on air, Sasuke's cold gaze, forcing him to freeze and look only at him. It was chilling. Taking a convulsive breath, the Jinchuriki tried to pull himself together, but hearing Sasuke's words, he only became even more confused. Naruto, you're not going anywhere. You and I are going to the temple right now. You can shove your complaints up your ass. I won't let you die. You are mine. Do you hear? A grin appeared on his thin lips, and Sasuke stood up. Uchiha leaned over, picking up his silent friend in his arms, and straightened up. His words had the desired effect, and Uzumaki was now so confused and did not understand what the brunette was hinting at. Well, Naruto was always distinguished by his long thoughts on any topic. It was necessary not to waste time, which was already short. The connection began to crack and become covered with cracks. This only said one thing: when the thread breaks, Naruto will no longer exist. Naruto grabbed his friend's neck in surprise and buried his face in his neck, exhaling sharply. Pain gripped his chest, and the blonde winced, turning away and burying his face even more in his neck, trying to hide his face from his friend, who was watching him tensely. The dark eyes instantly clouded over, became even darker, and Sasuke knelt down, lowering his partner. He tilted his head towards Uzumaki's face and quietly asked, "Does it hurt a lot?" The caring notes made him shudder. Naruto looked up, biting his lip. This was the last thing he needed. "It's bearable. It's just, team, it's so uncomfortable and too embarrassing for me. Could you carry me on your back? It will be more comfortable for you and me." Naruto squeezed the sweater that Ero-sanin had once given him with his hand. "Good. But you warn me if something goes wrong, so I can know exactly how to help you." Turning his back to Uzumaki, Sasuke began to wait for Naruto to grab his neck. Soon Naruto's arms were wrapped around Sasuke's neck. The Uchiha grabbed his legs, lifting himself up. Once he was on his feet, he swayed, getting used to the weight. And after doing this for only a couple of minutes, he hurried off, jumping up and down the first branch. Well, their journey began again. Sparks can create a whole fire. Commentary on sparks can create a whole fire. I guess I tried to make this part a little more emotional. I don't know how it turned out, it's up to you to decide. There are errors, as always, since I haven't asked my beta to test it yet, so forgive me for that smiley face. I'll be glad to hear your comments, since they make me very happy. Winky face. Your slow author loves her readers. 3. Naruto grimaces and tries to lay himself down more comfortably, which is becoming very problematic in his situation. For several days now, he and Sasuke have been wandering along a path known only to Uchiha, and have not yet come any closer to their goal. All this time, Naruto has not shown himself particularly eloquently, preferring to remain silent or answer with short phrases. Sasuke frowned, but also did not try to start a conversation. It was clear that he was not happy with the fact that his friend was silent, because usually his exclamations and words could be heard several meters away. Now Uzumaki closed himself off, preferring to remain silent during the journey, withdrawing into himself, where he talked with the fox. He began to do this more and more often, which could not help but infuriate the missing Ning. It was as if Uzumaki had chosen an interlocutor who seemed to understand him. Uchiha only hissed and did not touch his friend at first, for which Naruto was grateful to him, but Uchiha also had his own limit of patience. And at the end of the second day, he harshly pulled the blonde out of his